Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. This is Darren, the host of the Touch MBA podcast. Welcome to the show, episode 125. This week, I'm going to tackle a question I'm sure many of you have, and that is, should you hire an MBA admissions consultant? You know, it's estimated that 20 to 50% of applicants to elite MBA programs are using consultants, but let's just assume, 1 in 4 of your peers is using an admissions consultant, and the acceptance rate for the top 10 US schools has gone down, to about 15%. So competition is fierce. A lot of your peers are using admissions consultants that have a lot of experience in this industry. What should you do? Is a consultant worth $4,000, $8,000, $1,000 even? That's the subject we're going to tackle in this episode, and I'm going to share, my experience. So it's a very personal episode, and I just hope to give you guys some true, genuine guidance on how to make this decision. I wanted to let you also know that we have a lot of great resources for you at touchmba.com. In fact, we just published our first industry specialization guide. So the top 6 programs for launching a career in social impact. I know many of you are interested in that space. So we've shortlisted 6 programs that you think you must consider. I didn't want to call this the best 6 programs for social impact because there's so many great programs out there, but we felt that these 6 programs deserved a mention and deserved a look. So you can find this specialization guide as well as country MBA guides, as well as a list of all the interviews we've done here at Touch MBA at touchmba.com/guides. You can also get free school selection help at our website, which many of you have taken advantage of. You can also share your profile before you apply with 13 top-ranked business schools around the world. In fact, I just did a count, and we're lucky to have 10 of the top 50 MBA programs in the world as partners, and they're willing to talk to you before you apply. Why not take advantage of that? That's, again, at touchmba.com. And finally, some of you might have listened to last week's podcast where I interviewed Katie Lloyd from the Georgia Tech Scheller MBA program. And that interview came about because a listener during an event actually asked Katie, well, how come you haven't been on the Touch MBA podcast? And so, she reached out to me, and I'm so glad we did that interview. I thought it was a great episode. So if you haven't heard a program on the show, talk to these schools. Trust me, over the past 5 years, I've reached out to every top-ranked school multiple times, probably at least 4 to 5 times. So if they're not on the show, maybe you guys can put some pressure on them to jump on the program, all right? So I want to thank one of our loyal listeners, Bo, for mentioning our show to Katie from Georgia Tech. I also want to thank our sponsor for helping to keep this show running. The IESE MBA in Barcelona is consistently ranked top 15 worldwide by the Financial Times. Do you want to challenge yourself and take your career to the next level? IESE's full-time MBA program will transform your capacity to think strategically, explore new perspectives, and be a leader in today's global world. The IESE MBA give us 19 months, and we give you a lifetime of impact. Get informal feedback on your profile at mba.iese.edu or visit us on campus at our open days. So yes, shout out to IESE Business School and their MBA program. Definitely check it out. Let's jump into this week's episode. So let me share a note from one of our listeners, Justin, who came to our site to get free school selection help. Justin is applying to the top programs in the world. We're talking about top 10 in the US, top 10 worldwide. And he mentioned that he could certainly use help in crafting and revising his essays. He hasn't actually started drafting them yet, but he's not sure whether he wants to pay $5,000 plus for full service admissions help, especially given the short time frame Justin's trying to make the round 2 deadlines. So he asked me the following questions. Do you think that hiring an admissions consultant makes sense? If so, how can he get the most value out of a consultant? And by that, he means, should I go with a full package, a full comprehensive package, an hourly rate, a gut check review? What should he do? So let me try to tackle those 2 questions in this episode. Let me first share my background so you know where I'm coming from. Most of you know I used to be an admissions director for a top business school in Singapore. So did that for over 3 years. I've also been on the other side of the fence as an admissions consultant. I've probably worked with close to 50 consulting clients over the past 5 years and helped them get into top business schools. I'm not here to hawk my services. I don't want to do should you hire an MBA admissions consultant and hawk my own consulting services. That's the farthest thing that I want to do. I want to give you just truly my genuine, heartfelt advice here. So I'm not even going to mention my consulting site. But I want to share my background because I want to let you know that I have a lot of experience evaluating and reading applications. And I also have a lot of experience helping applicants craft successful applications. Let me first address the elephant in the room, which is the cost. I'm sure many of you, have started to look around at consultants, see their prices, which range from say $4,000 for one school of comprehensive help to $8,000 of help for say 3 schools comprehensive service. Maybe that made your eyes pop out of your sockets. And then you saw that hourly prices are $300 for an hour for the best consultants, sometimes more, sometimes less. And you might be wondering, why are these prices so expensive? And I understand where you're coming from. In fact, part of the reason why I started Touch MBA was because of these prices. I just felt it was unfair that someone from a developed country who makes a good salary could afford such advice and services, say paying someone like me $5,000 to help them with their application, whereas someone from Vietnam, from a developing country, doesn't even make that much in 1 year. So I just felt like that was really unfair, and that's part of the reason why I started offering free school selection help to candidates in Vietnam. And I did, hundreds of profiles, and that eventually spread to what Touch MBA is now. So I understand where you're coming from here. $5,000 can seem like an insane amount of money to have someone look at your essays, to have someone look at your application. I understand where you're coming from. But I'm also here to explain that from the other side of the table, as a consultant, as someone who's made money helping applicants, yes, it is an easy business to start if you have the experience, right? Anyone can set up a web page that's been a former MBA admissions director like myself, or even a former MBA student. Yeah, that's usually, who's in the game. It's easy business to start, but I can tell you that it is extremely time and energy consuming. First, the back and forth feel out period when a client contacts you and is trying to decide whether to use your services. Many times those don't work out, and many times that's after you give multiple free consultations, maybe a Skype call, and you're truly genuinely trying to help the client. They end up going with someone else or not even using your services. So it's a lot of time trying to get someone through the door, and then once they are through the door, if you're like me, I damn well want to make sure that my clients get into the top schools. So I constructed my consulting policies to help them do that, whether that's, unlimited edits on an essay service or unlimited edits on a resume service, multiple mock interviews, whatever it is. And that takes a ton of time. So let me just give one example. I offer essay editing services starting at $300 $300 for, say, a 300-word essay. Okay, and now someone might say, gosh, that is a hell of a lot of money. But if someone works with me and pays me that much money to work on their essays, I offer unlimited reviews. A truly good consultant will want to know not just that essay, but your entire package, right? Like, how are you planning to position yourself? Because they got to see how that essay fits within the bigger picture and your bigger Positioning. That takes time, first of all. And a truly good consultant will not write your essays for you, but will rather bring out your best story. And that takes actually a lot more time than blatantly writing someone's essay for them. That's not only unethical, but it's bad consulting. A truly good consultant, guides you and coaxes your best stories out of you. And that takes a lot of time. Most times with an essay review, I'm doing at least 3 edits. Each of those edits takes me at least 1 hour. Okay. And then you can factor in all the email back and forth in terms of getting a client to sign up. And then maybe a couple more exchanges, after the edits. And you'll realize that I'm not actually getting paid $300, say, per hour. It's probably much less than $100 per hour after, all the edits. And that's from someone with nearly a decade's worth of experience. I just use this simple example to say that admissions consulting is a very time and energy consuming job. Not just with the work, but also in the response time, right? Clients expect you to get back to them within a day or two. And I try to, and I'm sure other top admissions consultants do the same. We're also in what Peter Thiel mentions in his great business book, 0 to 1. I encourage all of you to read that book. Admissions consultants exist in what he calls the valley of death, right? Basically, Peter Thiel, I should mention, is one of the most famous investors in Silicon Valley and helped start PayPal, was one of the earliest investors in Facebook, for example. But he mentions that if your product is $1 to $100, you can use marketing to get a lot of customers. If your product is worth $10,000 to $10 million, you can have a sales force that you can pay well, right, to go out there and to sell your product and do complex sales transactions. But if you're somewhere between the $100 mark and the $10,000 mark your product is, which is what most admissions consultants are, this is what he calls the valley of death, right? Because it takes so much effort to make a sale in this range that might not be worth, hiring a salesperson for, right? So that's why he calls it the valley of death. And that's where we exist. Maybe this is a little bit too much inside baseball, quote unquote, but I think it's important to know where consultants are coming from. And that's part of the reason why they push applicants to higher ticket items like comprehensive school packages, say a minimum of 2 hours working with the consultant, because it takes a lot of effort to get those clients through the door, and they're spending a lot of time and energy on each client. So why not go for a package that's $5,000 to $8,000? That would justify their own time investment as well. I want to address that elephant in the room and show that I understand both perspectives, where students are coming from and where consultants are coming from. Now, what is a consultant's biggest value add? I think it is to point to your potential blind spots. A good admissions consultant has seen the matrix, right? They have seen dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of applications. So they've developed an intuition, an instinct for what a really memorable and outstanding application is. And so when you hire someone like that, they're able to give you some really good guidance, right? I think consultants also offer value if they're good writers, obviously, if they have a bit of a career coach in them, because I think that's becoming more and more important in today's MBA application, understanding an applicant's goals and understanding industries well enough to say, okay, yeah, your career goals make sense. They don't make sense. I think a great admissions consultant is a very strong storyteller, is a master of positioning. And most importantly, I think that a great admissions consultant is a counselor, almost like a psychologist. In fact, many of my clients have told me they almost feel after working with me that I'm like a psychologist, like I really understand their deepest motivations, some stories that maybe they haven't shared with other people. And I think this ability to truly listen to an applicant is so important, because if you're a good consultant, you're not imposing your own view on the applicant, but rather bringing it out of them. It's really hard to explain, but the closest analogy I could come up with was that being a really great admissions consultant is like being a movie director. A good movie director understands the mechanics of what makes an entertaining movie, of what makes a touching and effective movie. But a good director must not dictate how an actor performs. I believe a good director would find the right way to bring out the actor's truest and best and most memorable performance. And a good director, while having a vision for what his movie or her movie is, would be able to be fluid and adaptable to the actors' performances, to the settings, and to see what arises in that space. That might seem kind of vague, but that's how I view my work as an admissions consultant when I have been one. And that's how I imagine the best admissions consultants work. So again, these are things that I think could really add value to an applicant. Understanding that matrix of MBA admissions, having an instinct for what makes a successful profile and application, and then all those things we mentioned about storytelling, being a great listener, being a great counselor, and being a great writer as well, and career coach. So I think that a consultant could offer a lot of value. Now, do you need to hire an MBA admissions consultant? And like all wise answers in the world, I believe it depends. I don't think everyone needs to hire one, even though, say, a quarter of your peers are hiring admissions coaches, okay? Let me give you a simple framework for helping you to decide whether you should move forward with one. So imagine a classic BCG matrix. And on the x-axis, you have how confident you are in your writing skills and in your quote-unquote application skills, your ability to position yourself and market yourself and tell a memorable story. So x-axis is confidence. And the y-axis is network. Network meaning how many MBA people do you know? MBA students, MBA alumni, MBA professors, MBA admissions professionals. Imagine that BCG box, okay? So if you are very confident in your writing skills and in your positioning skills, and you have a strong MBA network, say friends that have gone to top programs, then you probably don't need an admissions consultant. You can prepare your applications and you can get your friends and colleagues to review them. I think that is super effective because, again, the biggest benefit from working with an admissions consultant is they've seen the matrix. They understand what a strong application is, and they have seen a ton of applications, right? So they're essentially lending a very expert eye, third pair of eyes or second pair of eyes on your application. Well, why not, if you have an MBA network, get that network to look at your essays, to look at your resume, to talk through your career goals. And the more people you can do that with, the better. You're going to have a really strong application without an MBA admissions consultant. And then if you have no network, no MBA network, and very little confidence in your writing and application skills, then I think an MBA consultant could really help you and would be well worth the investment. And we're talking about probably a comprehensive package, right? Like full end-to-end help and guidance throughout the entire application process. If you are confident in your application skills, but you don't have an MBA network, or you have an MBA network, but you're not really confident in your application skills, well, then you might think about so-called a la carte services, whether that's hourly or whether that's, say just editing a few essays or editing your resume or doing a mock interview, and getting help there from a consultant could be really helpful. And then you can apply your learnings from that to your other applications. So hopefully most of you can grasp that BCG matrix. So to me, it really depends. Those are the two key factors: your confidence and your network. So in the case of Justin, who asked me how could he get the most value from an admissions consultant, he ended up going for a la carte help with his essays because, he had previously worked at Bain. So he had people in his network, but maybe less confidence in writing his essays. What should you look for from an admissions consultant? I think these are the most important things. First of all, responsiveness and availability. So if you submit a free consultation request, how quickly does that firm get back to you? Ask them how quick are their turnaround times. Also look for that consultant's availability. I don't think a consultant can be very effective if they're working with, say, 10 applicants at the same time. That's just a lot of stories to carry in your head and a lot of different deadlines to meet. And maybe there's a Superman consultant or Superwoman consultant out there that is doing that, but I know that for someone with my limited intelligence, I could not handle that many clients at a time. So you want to ask, how many other applicants are you working with? Do you have time in, say, the next month or 2 months to give me a good amount of attention? You want to, of course, look at a consultant's experience and track record. I think a good place to start here is the GMAT Club rankings. So people have left verified reviews about their consultants. I did a quick look at it, and I don't think any firm there is lower than 4.7 stars out of 5. So you're probably just going to hear mostly good things about each of these firms, but at least that's a resource that GMAT Club has cultivated and given to applicants. And I think it's still worth looking through to see how those firms operate and what you can expect. Then what you can do is test run these firms. So through the free consultation, help get a feel for the advice the consultant has, the style he or she has, and even better, maybe even sample a service, whether that's one essay. I know, for example, a lot of my clients started out working with me, asking for help with one essay, and then they realized that it was a really good fit. They were getting a lot of value. And then they decided to do 3 or 4 more essays or, resume as well, or a mock interview. So I think you can test run an admissions consultant doing one smaller service to see if it's a good fit. I think those are the things you should be looking for. And there's no fail-safe way to do this because you won't really know your fit with the consultant until you start working with them. The free consultation should give you a feeling, but as you know, it's different when you meet someone for an interview for your company from when they're actually working for your company, right? Those are my tips in terms of what you should look for from a consultant. To sum it all up, I think the process should be, number one, first, are you within range? I had an applicant come to me the other day and she had a 550 GMAT, went to a good school, has good work experience, has a decent GPA, but she has a 550 GMAT and she's applying to the top 20 programs in the US. And I gave her my honest feedback. I said, look, I know you're looking for an admissions consultant, but I think the best thing you can do is to raise your GMAT score, or at the very least, give schools more evidence of your quantitative proficiency through courses like MBA Math that I've recommended on this podcast. Show them that you can pass through those quant courses with flying colors, if you're not able to raise your GMAT. I think that's the best way you could help yourself, as opposed to refining your positioning and refining your essays, which would surely help, but is not the most important thing. So you want to make sure you're in range. And again, that's why I started touchmba.com, again, to help applicants from Vietnam who didn't have the resources to pay for an expert, to give them an idea of their competitiveness and of what schools fit them best. So start with a site like ours, which offers a free service, or post your profile on the MBA forums and try to get feedback from admissions experts there. But try to get an idea of if you're within range, right? I think that's the first question you should ask yourself before you hire an admissions consultant. Can the admissions consultant even help you, right? Then the second question, I believe, is to look around you and look to see who's in your network that has MBA experience. Who are your friends that are MBA students? Who are your friends that are MBA alumni? Talk to them. Try to get their help. Try to get their eyes on your application. And then 3, assess kind of your confidence level. So if you realize, okay, I have a lot of people in my network, but I'm still not very confident about my positioning and my essays, then you can think about an admissions consultant. Or if you don't have many people in your network and you're not that confident, then that's time to really think about an admissions consultant. Now, there's a timing to this. So Justin wrote me, he has about a month and a half left before his round 2 deadlines. So that's a really tight time frame. I would strongly encourage you all to ask yourself these sort of questions and to do this exploration as early as possible, because not only will you lock down, top consultants earlier in the game, but you give the consultants more time to really get to know you. It's not such a pressured interaction where you have to get something done within a couple days or a couple weeks, right? Don't leave this to the last minute. I understand this is a difficult decision to make when you're staring at, $500, $1,000, $5,000. That's a lot of money. I really understand that. But in some cases, I do think it's worth it because those top consultants will really help you. If you don't have the confidence and experience and you don't have the network, those top consultants can really do wonders and really help your presentation and could even help you win scholarship funding, right? So in the end, it's well worth the investment. And I'm sure there are listeners who say, I worked with an admissions consultant, it wasn't worth it. And I'm sure there's listeners who say it was worth every penny. I got a scholarship or I got into my dream school. It's definitely a gray area and there's no easy answers. But I hope giving you all more context on how it works on the admissions consultant side and also who I think an admissions consultant services could best benefit helps you make this tough decision. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you got some value from it, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your number one school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.